So welcome back. I'm out at the log pile. I decided that this video is going to be basically answering questions that I've had either on YouTube or Facebook or what have you. Without further ado, I'll just get right into it. One of the questions I get is how do I store the pieces of wood before I turn them into drums or whatever I'm making. Outdoor storage, this is it. I'm sitting on a 8-foot long, probably 22-inch at the big end log of walnut, and right behind me is another one about the same size. I try to store them at 8-foot lengths. Then when I'm cutting them off, it's less likely to be ruined out here in the end. I've only got to cut maybe 3 inches off the end at the max, usually more like 1.5 inches. I do, however, at times have to make shorter pieces for hauling purposes, and so I have a whole bunch of little pieces out here, and the neighbor's dog is over there somewhere too. But anyway, those are all, like the ones you see there in that stack are going to be drums at some point. And then there's a big 8-foot log of oak, and of course the 2 walnut ones I was just sitting on. The one still got the ribbon from when I went out to cut it. The fella had marked it to make sure I got the right one. But anyway, that's how I store them. So if you bear with me, we're going to go back over to the shop, and I'll show you some more stuff, answer some more of the questions that I've got in there. Okay? Okay, so back in the shop. I turned all the fans off, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay on this one. I did a video a while back and I had the fans on because it's hot in here when they're not on. But one of the questions I got was about the steady rests. No, I didn't buy them, they're homemade. This one will handle 15.5, and then the big guy here will handle only 16.5. The lathe is capable of 18, but of course with the banjo on there, it's actually only 14, because that's about 1 7/8 inches height, which gives you about 1/8 of an inch clearance for 14 inches. But I want to be able to do bigger than that, so I created a new toy that you actually haven't seen on the videos. Oh, well, a little bit more about this. The legs here actually square it to the rail, and then I just use a wrench to bolt it on. The wheels on this one are aluminum. They're off of a printing press, I believe, and they're got bearings in them, so of course they still get hot, but they don't melt like the plastic wheels were melting on me. When you're doing stuff that's a large diameter, the roller skate wheels or nylon wheels that come on rollerblades and stuff heat up, and I have melted some, so decided to go with metal wheels. The bigger one here actually has idler pulleys for automotive belt, for flat belt, and they work really good. They do tend to leave a black streak, so does the aluminum, but since I'm rough turning when I'm doing the big stuff like that, afterwards I can just go over it with a gouge and smooth it off, and takes the black marks off, so not that big of a deal. This guy hangs back here, and I'll pull the big one up so you can get a look at it. It weighs a bit more than the littler one. Made out of 2x2 angle iron with these are actually, these bolts on the end, actually I put a impact driver on them, and there's a screw that runs the complete inside of this, and it just pushes it right out. I can adjust how much tension's on them and everything. That's kind of nice. I also added lockdown bolts. Let me see if I can turn this without falling. There we go. These lockdown bolts, and because these tend to wiggle a little bit, so when you lock that down, it also keeps the screw from backing out when it's rolling on the project. So, but anyway, it's got the same deal. The legs square it to the bed. and then I just use the same bolt that's on that one to bolt this one down. This one's so heavy I don't use it very often. Unless I'm doing something really big, I don't even bother getting it out. And actually, if I use it on the head end, the one time that I have used it on a drum, the head end was 15.5. I did the bowl, and then when I flipped it around, I actually switched back to the other steady rest to do the tail, to do the stem on the drum. Put this guy back. Okay, so I was wanting to do bigger than 14 inches, so this is what I came up with. And basically, this is an underbelly tool rest, or under the bed tool rest, whatever you want to call it. I just switched the pinch bolt from the regular tool rest, and voila. Now, the thing with it, I'm going to pull the camera over so you can see it. Bear with me a second here. Okay, so the thing with it is I went with the leg all the way to the floor. And the part that goes under the belly of the lathe, under the bed here, is a square tube. And then this square tube is actually sliding, see if I can point that up where you can see it. This square tube actually slides inside of this one. And then I can loosen that and move it in and out. It takes a little bit. The foot kind of grabs the floor a little. But for allowing me to do a full diameter that the lathe is capable of, it's quite alright. And then this one, loosen it up and it'll slide up and down the lathe. I am not very good at holding the camera and trying to explain all this while doing stuff. Sorry. Anyway, so this slides it up and down the lathe, and then lock that back down. We're in my new position. And then the leg has a nut on the foot that can be loosened to raise the foot up. I leave it just a little bit loose with about maybe a millimeter or so space between the pipe and the nut. And then what that does is, I was afraid that by clamping onto the bottom of the bed like this, if this was gone right here, there was nothing and it was just the tool rest holding, that the pressure on that cast iron would break the cast iron. When you've got a 15-inch, 200-pound log spinning around up there, the downward pressure on the tool rest as it's coming around, especially during rough out, I was afraid that it would actually snap the cast iron, because cast iron is kind of brittle. So I've messed up my numbers. Oh well, it's going to happen. Lathe's already 6 months old, starting to get tore up. But so that was the purpose of having the leg to the floor. So then when the pressure comes down, that little millimeter of distance there lets it come down that much, and then that's it. It doesn't go any further. So it keeps it from hopefully breaking the bed of the lathe. So far, it's in one piece still, and I did do a really big drum on it, which is actually right here, and kind of segues into our next section. I get a whole lot of questions on drying drums. So what I do is I have a little electric pot and put water in here, makes a double boiler, and then I put this, if I can get the lid off of it, it seems to have waxed itself on. There we go. And then we put wax and oil. I say we, Dad and I both work with this thing, but he uses the same stuff for some of his projects. But you can see a thin layer of the remnants there. But anyway, we put boiled linseed oil and beeswax in, and I take chunks of beeswax. Some friends of mine over in Missouri have a bee farm. Well, actually, I guess they're not in Missouri anymore, so I don't know where I'm going to get my wax next time. But and I can get these little bricks like this, which are about 1/4 pound, maybe less. But anyway, you put one of those in there with the double boiler with the water in the bottom, and when it melts down, I pour the oil in, and then whatever height that's at, I put 4 to 6 times more oil than there is wax. And you end up with a slurry. We pour it into these potato salad bowls because Dad likes potato salad, but you end up with a slurry that's really, really soft. And when you put that on wood, what happens is the wood absorbs the oil, which seals it to some extent, and it leaves the wax on the surface, and the wax sticks really hard to the end grain or whatever. So that's what was done to this one, is the wax was put on the end grain, and then I bag it. Now, at first I was bagging them with filling the inside with shavings. I found out that's a no-no, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But what ends up happening is the moisture is held in the center and the outside starts to dry, and that is what causes cracking in the first place, is when the outside shrinks faster than the inside, then the outside cracks. If the inside shrinks faster than the outside, generally it doesn't do that. So one of the things you have to understand in drying the drums out is that I'm starting with an object that is pretty much centered in the log. So otherwise the pith is like just if it's slightly off center, not a big deal, but it's usually within 1.5 inches of the center point. And so I take the pith completely out. What I've got is the outside of the drum is following the annular rings. And so it shrinks relatively evenly. Now there's a little bit of deviation, of course, because trees aren't all perfectly round. And we're going to go upstairs, see the drying room. So I know you guys have been down this path before if you've watched all my videos, but we've never gone up here. So this is the shop attic, which is full of junk. Get some light on, here we go. So here's a couple of drums that were drying, and this is one that I was going to show you that, and where is it? There we go. Nice big crack. Now this is a recoverable crack. I'll be able to fill it in and make the drum still work, but it's disappointing. And then this one has got some cracking right along the stem, and I mean it goes way around there, but this is maple, and in the past when I've done them with maple they do this, and I was like, oh, disappointed, you know, but I let the drum shell sit around for like a year and the cracks closed up. I could find no evidence of them, and it doesn't go all the way through to the inside. There's no crack in here, so it's all good. This one, however, I do not think will close up, and it goes through on the inside to about there. I waxed it over the inside so it would quit losing moisture there quite as quickly. I should have waxed the outside, but oh well. But you can see this is what the wax does, the oil and wax mixture does. It becomes like a paste, a thick wax paste on there, and it's stuck pretty good. So it slows that moisture escaping quite a bit. So there's one. That one I actually moisture metered yesterday. It's down to 11%. It's ready to go to the lathe and be returned and finished. So that's a cute little drum too. And then there's a couple more that are drying. Sometimes I have burlap bags, and I try to put them in those when I can. They breathe better. They dry out a little bit faster. But most of the time I put them into trash bags if they're small, or not trash bags, but grocery bags if they're small enough, and if they're big, then I use lawn and leaf bags from Home Depot. It was a pretty simple one. It's a double layered bag too, so it does take a little longer. This is one that's in a burlap bag, and this was, until I built that new rest, this was the biggest thing I've made, and it's a massive dude. It is ash, and around here ash gets attacked by ants really bad, so it's hard to find it solid enough to actually do a drum out of without having like rivets and holes through it. And so when I found a piece that actually, when I started turning it and there was no holes, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna get a drum out of ash, and I did. So we have an ash drum. It will be a while before that one's dried out. It's down to about 15, which technically I could go ahead and turn it. It's probably past the point of the crack threat, but I would rather wait until it's down to about 11. I've got to take this one down with me. They get filled with spider webs up here, by the way. So anyway, looks like a long way down, doesn't it? There's the next project sitting on the dolly. I strip the bark off outside, and then sometimes I true them up a little bit. Sorry for the shop being such a mess. It's kind of a standard issue around here. We spend more time working on projects than we do cleaning the shop. And I think that's the case with most people. At least in my experience, it has been. So, you know, it helps if I flip the screen around. There we go. So that's part of it. Let's see, what else did I write down on my little card here? Moisture content we talked about. Oh, the amount of time it takes them to dry. It depends on several factors. One is how thick I leave them. So if I leave them at like inch to inch and a quarter, then it takes a little longer. But generally, in a month, I can see a big difference on the moisture meter. In 6 weeks, they're usually, I'd say 80% of them in 6 weeks are ready, and the rest of them after about 2 months. So, but it varies. And I put them in the attic because it's really hot up there. And there's a vent up on top of the attic that lets out heat, so it doesn't get too hot. If it got too hot, then they dry out too fast, they would crack, even with the wax on there. As it stands, I lose probably 1 in 5 of the drums that I make as far as to cracks. Now, out of 5 of them that crack, 4 of them I can rescue and actually make work. The other one becomes firewood. So, in all actuality, I'm losing, what, 1 out of 25? Something like that. So, it's not all that bad. The cracked ones that I repair, I just sell a little bit cheaper. Let's see. Oh yeah. Jam chucks and the friction drive. Okay, so the jam chuck is when I put the drum up onto, I've got the steady rest out here, and I put the jam chuck up here, and I put the head of the drum after I've dug out the bowl. I flip it over and I put it up on there. That jam chuck has to be tight. Hence why it's called a jam chuck, because the drum is jammed onto it, and friction is holding it there. And then when it spins, the drum spins, and of course this end doesn't have a tailstock on it because I'm hollowing it out. You can do it with the tail up there, but it leaves that cone in the middle, and it kind of gets in the way when you get deeper. And some of these things have, 12 and 14 inch long stems. Kind of hard to leave a cone that long and get my tool around it, so I opt to make them tight enough that they stay put. It means taking a hammer or something long to beat the jam chuck off of it, but that's okay. When I return them, like I'm going to do with the little one I just brought down, then I'm using what's called a friction drive. Now it looks just like a jam chuck, and in fact I use the jam chucks and just kind of modify them a little bit so they fit, because the drum's going to be a different size. From drying, it's going to shrink, so it's going to be a different size than what the jam chuck was when I originally used it on that drum. So the jam chucks, I go through them. By the time it's done 30 drums, it's time to make a new chuck or switch it to the tail end and make it small enough for that. But anyway, I'll put the jam chuck up here, and I just have to make it fit the drum so it centers it. It doesn't have to be tight anymore, because now I'm going to have the tailstock up against the back end with another chuck on it, another jam chuck on it, and it's not technically a jam chuck. It's just a extension of the tailstock point, so that it's a larger cone to fit in there and center the drum. Once that's done, it's turned on drive, and you've got pressure from the tailstock holding against the friction drive at the front, and voila, finish the drum. Put your wax or oil on it and go from there. As far as finishing goes, most of these I use that same slurry that I use to store them, except I put it on differently. And instead of just like globbing it on to the end grain, I actually put a thin coat over the whole drum, and then with my bare hands, I spin it up to about 250, maybe 300 RPM, and start rubbing all over the whole thing with my bare hands, and the wax heats up and it smooths out over the drum. It makes them look really sharp. I like the look of it, and I have yet to have a customer complain about it. I've had a few requests polyurethane finishes because they plan to be outdoors a whole lot, which is fine. I can do that, but a lot of people don't like the glossy look on their drum. It kind of makes it look plasticky, and most people prefer the more natural finish, is what I found. Let's see what else we got here. The hollowing tool. So these are Pro-Forme tips, and I have two of them now. This one, the boring bar for it is about 18, and it's got a 17-inch handle. So with the tip included, overall is just a hair under 36 inches. And then the big guy, oh, and the bar for this one's 11/16, just a hair over 5/8. The big one is a lot bigger. It's a 3/4 inch bar, and the bar is 27, the handle's 25.5. With the tip included, overall is 53 3/4. And I love this tool. It is fantastic. So anyway, we got we get down to business with this. I can actually overhang the tool rest about 14 inches with this thing with minimal vibration. Not that it's not there, it's just a lot less than if I was, say, doing it with this one or an even smaller, say, 3/8 tool or something. So these are monsters. I buy the tips. They're just under $100. Actually, they're right at $100 with shipping. And they're well worth every penny. I make my own boring bars. I've done that for years, and I couldn't see a reason why I couldn't make them. The difficult part is there's a flat spot on top to allow the brass anti-kickback thingy-jigger, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but it keeps it from kicking back. But basically, these tools are shaped much like the edge of a gouge with a Ellsworth grind on it, right? Except that the instead of the tip going down into the slope of the valley of the gouge, it just comes around. And I'm telling you, I've never seen anything cut like these. And if you've watched the drum making videos and you've seen the shavings slide, you probably agree. I've never seen anything cut like these. I bought the first one and I was like, wow, I could make drums again. Because I quit for 3 years. And then Yuval, over there in Italy, decides to challenge me to make a drum, and so I did. And now I'm stuck making drums again because all the people that used to buy drums from me are like, oh my God, you're doing it again. And I'm like, yeah. And I got a whole lot of other people interested. So that's the purpose of this video, or the purpose of all these videos, is to let y'all know, yes, I'm doing it again. And most of the time, previously when I was making drums, I made the shells, I put the heads on them, I did the whole gambit. I would take them out to shows and I would sell them. I did not get a lot of exposure because it was mostly people that would go to the same shows as I did. I got a little bit, and I sold a lot of drums that way. But this time I'm kind of tired of heading drums. That is a tedious process to be done right. I mean, sure, you can head a drum pretty dang quick. It's not going to sound right. If you take the time to get it right, then it takes a lot longer. So I'm heading a few, but mainly for when I go out to the shows. Otherwise, I'm selling them the shell, 2 top rings and 1 lower ring. And then if you want a triple top ring, then you just let me know and I'll add a 3rd ring for like $5 or something. Their shell and rings range anywhere from, I'm still deciding because it's a lot different than when I did it before. I can make these a lot faster, so I'm going to, don't hold me to this, but I'm going to say shell with rings could be anywhere from 100 to 250, depending on size of drum, type of wood, etc. But I make the djembes, I make boogarahus, if I find other flavors of drums that I like, then I'll make those too. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Kansas City Chiefs, but they have this big, big drum they bring out at the beginning of every game. One moment, please. Doc! Leave the squirrels alone. Okay, so the Kansas City Chiefs have this big, big drum they bring out at the beginning of every game. A little over 3 years ago, they contacted me and asked me to build it for them, and I did. That was the point at which I said, you know, that was kind of the epitome of drum building. That thing was a monster. It was 5.5 feet in diameter, 2 cow skins, 2 1,800 to 2,000 pound cows gave me their skins, so to speak. I went to a butcher shop, so to speak. I scraped them. That was a mess, but it took me 2 months to build that drum, and by the time I was done, I was like, you know, I'm kind of done. And I haven't built one since. I've finished up a few that I had shells laying around for, but I didn't build another one until about 6 weeks ago, when you started seeing the drum videos pop up on my channel. So that's kind of the backstory there. Anyway, but I never got to do it on the lathe before because I didn't have a lathe big enough. I didn't have a steady rest big enough. I didn't have the hollowing tools at all. But in my dealings with just learning to turn more and more and fancier sculptures and such, I came across these hollowing tools, and it was kind of like, wow, I think I'm going to try that again. And that and Yuval finding my former channel and saying, dude, you got to make a drum. So it took me a while, but I did get to it. So yes, I do head them sometimes. If you want to order a drum, I have had lots of people ask about, how do I order a drum from you? Well, if you're asking me via a message of some sort, whether it be a message across YouTube, a message on Facebook, or if you happen to find my email and you send me an email, that's pretty much how you do it. I don't have a website other than my Facebook pages and whatnot. So, you know, drop me a message across Facebook. You can look it up under Cyrus Fillmore, just like the channel name. And I have a fan page, if you will, but it's for my woodwork and sculpture. And I guess it's going to be moving along to drums too. And probably one of the neatest questions I get is, can I come see your shop and learn from you? Yes, you can. If you want to make the trip to the middle of nowhere, Kansas, to a very small town, population's only about maybe 3,000 in this town, sure. Just, again, contact me and we'll make arrangements. I have 3 lathes set up, ready to work. I've got 2 more that can be set up in less than a day, a few hours maybe. So we can have one heck of a lathe turning party. It would be awesome. I'd love to see it. But first you have to get to middle of nowhere, Kansas. To give you an idea, it's near Topeka, Kansas, called Osage City. Look it up on a map, you'll find it's out there. So anyway, guys, I'm keeping the video short today. This has actually gone a little longer than I expected because of my propensity to run on at the mouth. But yeah, that's the gist of it. I guess that should cover most of the questions I've had. If you have others, please leave them in the comments. Maybe in the future, another 20 videos from now, I'll do another one and I'll answer more questions. All right? Oh, and by the way, thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I never thought in a million years that in less than 6 months I'd have over 800 subscribers. You guys are awesome. And it's what keeps me making the videos, is that I keep getting new subscribers. So thank you all very much.